Chapter 1. The Return to Greyhollow. Nathaniel Crane never intended to return to Greyhollow. It was a town where his mother had vanished without a trace when he was 10, swallowed by the old woods that pressed against the town like a suffocating blanket. They'd found no body, no clues. Only her locket left on the front porch of their crumbling house. 20 years later, Nathaniel was drawn back by a letter. The handwriting was shaky, unfamiliar, yet the words pierced through him like icy needles. Nathaniel, come home. She's waiting for you. Greyhollow doesn't forget. There was no signature, no address, but Nathaniel knew where he had to go. Against his better judgment, he packed his bags and drove through the fog-drenched countryside, past fields that seemed too still, too silent. When he crossed into Greyhollow, the air itself seemed thicker, heavier. The streets were empty, the houses sagging under the weight of years. But it was the Crane house at the end of Willow Lane that stopped him cold. It looked exactly as he remembered, untouched by time, the windows staring like dead eyes. And on the porch, gleaming under the moonlight, was his mother's locket. But this time, it was open. Inside was a photo that hadn't been there before. A photo of him, standing in front of the house. Chapter 2. The Things in the Walls. Nathaniel stepped into the house, his footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust on the floor. The door creaked shut behind him with a finality that made his skin crawl. The house smelled of mildew and something deeper. Rotting would mix with an undercurrent of decay. But it was the silence that unsettled him most. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the feeling that the house was listening. As he moved through the familiar rooms, memories clawed at him. His mother's laughter in the kitchen, the sound of her humming as she folded laundry. But those memories were drowned out by something else. A faint scratching. It came from the walls, soft at first, like mice scurrying through old insulation. But soon it grew louder, more deliberate. It was as if something was moving inside the walls, following him from room to room. Nathaniel pressed his ear to the cracked wallpaper, and he heard it. Nathaniel, his blood turned to ice. The voice was unmistakable. It was his mother's. Chapter 3. The Basement Door. That night, Nathaniel couldn't sleep. The house creaked and groaned around him like it was breathing. The voice in the walls whispered his name over and over, lulling him into a restless stupor. At exactly 3:13 a.m., he awoke to a sound he hadn't heard in years, the sharp, metallic clang of the basement door unlocking. But that door had been sealed shut since the night his mother disappeared. Compelled by something he couldn't explain, Nathaniel crept down the hallway. The basement door stood ajar, revealing only darkness below. A cold breeze wafted up the stairs, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of earth and something older, something wrong. And then he heard it again. "Come down, Nathaniel. I've been waiting." It was her voice, but it wasn't right. There was something hollow in the tone, something that scraped against the edges of his sanity. Still, his feet moved of their own accord. Step by step, he descended into the darkness. Chapter 4. The Root of the House. The basement was not as he remembered. The walls were damp, covered in thick, black mold that pulsed as if alive. The dirt floor had been disturbed, clawed open to reveal a gaping hole at the far end of the room. From that hole, roots emerged, not roots of trees, but something else. They twisted and writhed like veins, pulsating with a sickly green glow. And in the center of it all was his mother, or what was left of her. She stood impossibly still, her skin pale and stretched thin over her bones. Her eyes were hollow, black as the pit behind her, but her mouth was smiling. "Nathaniel," she crooned, her voice both tender and inhuman. "You left me here, but I forgive you. Come, let me show you what I've become." Nathaniel wanted to run, to scream, but his body refused. The roots slithered toward him, wrapping around his ankles, pulling him closer. And as he was dragged toward the pit, he saw other faces in the walls. Faces of people he'd known, people who had disappeared from Greyhollow over the years. They were part of the house now, and soon he would be too. Chapter 5. The House That Hungers. Nathaniel's screams echoed through the house, but no one was there to hear them. The roots pulled him into the pit, into the heart of Greyhollow. The house groaned in satisfaction as the walls absorbed his presence. His memories, his soul, seeped into the structure, becoming just another whisper in the chorus of voices that haunted its halls. Above, the house grew still once more, waiting, and on the front porch, under the pale moonlight, Nathaniel's locket gleamed, open, revealing a new photo. A photo of you, standing at the edge of Willow Lane. Because Greyhollow doesn't forget, and it's hungry.